Hello. Uh, it's been a while since my last video, so I wanted to record this video in anticipation of the upcoming new year for 2026 because Deltarune Chapter 5 is going to be coming out this year. Nobody knows when, but it is going to be coming out, and I wanted to get this video up before then just to share my thoughts about what I believe, how I believe the story is going to go, and what I believe ultimately some of the themes are going to be. So, also some theories I have regarding the latter half of the game. So, first of all, I believe that a lot of people assume that with the dialogue regarding Gerson, where he says that Susie has the white pen of hope and she can rewrite the future, or she can like paint white across an ocean of black or whatever. A lot of people are taking that as in Susie is going to change the ending, or Susie is going to change the prophecy or change destiny or something like that. I actually disagree. I think, in regards to the story of Deltarune, I believe what it is getting at is that there are certain things out of people's control, like how they're born, uh, how they, like how certain events happen in life that are simply out of their control. Like there are things in life that you simply cannot do anything about. Like, uh, you know, whoever is in, you can't ultimately control like laws that get made. You can't control the government as a whole. You can't, there's a lot of things that normal people do not have control over, and a lot of people would call those kinds of things fate or destiny or luck or things like that. Just things that you cannot control. And I believe what Gerson is getting at, I hope I'm saying that right. I hope his name isn't like Jerson or something. I'm going to get roasted. But I believe what he's getting at is specifically in regards to one of his lines where he says it's important to like read between the lines or something, or like, like you can read in between the lines regarding certain events, or you can like interpret them differently. And I believe that's how a lot of events are going to go in Deltarune. I believe that there is going to be one ending to the game. I believe that the prophecy is going to come true. Whatever the final prophecy panel is, whatever it was, whatever it is, I believe it is going to happen no matter what. And I believe that is the ocean of black that is going to wash over the pages. Is that it is uh, a guaranteed event that will happen. It is immutable. But where I believe Deltarune's themes come in is I believe you can control your choices outside of things you can't control. Like, you can't control how you're born, you can't control many different things, but you can control how you come out of those experiences. You can control how you react to them. You can control what you choose to do after those experiences. And I believe that depending on the route you choose, uh, the actions you take, because while yes, your actions do not matter in the sense that they do not change specific plot beats of the story, like you still go to each dark world, you still experience X and Y that are guaranteed to happen in the game, but you can control your actions between those moments. You can control what happens in the light world. You can choose which NPCs you talk to. You can choose how you respond to certain questions or prompts given to you. You can control that, and I believe those actions that take place between the lines, between the things you cannot control, those are going to determine ultimately what happens after the ending. i.e. the epilogue. And I believe the epilogue is going to effectively be the true, like that's where the story is really going to hit. Is I believe there's going to be an epilogue where the choices you made between the events you can control are going to ultimately determine how the story turns out. Like, for instance, I don't know, like someone dies or something, and some choices you make allows them to either come back to life, or maybe you honor their memory in a different way. But like, those are your choices to make. You can choose how you react to those things you cannot control. And I believe Susie is going to realize that while she can't stop the prophecy, she can choose what happens after the prophecy is fulfilled. Whether that be she brings someone back to life, or she maybe fulfills the strictest sense of the prophecy, like if she has to kill someone, or if she has to sacrifice someone, or if Ralsei has to do X or Y, then she'll find a way to let them fulfill that in the strictest sense of the word. And I should clarify, I have no evidence for any of this. This is just my gut feelings regarding how the story has gone and how the story is going to go, based on everything that has led up to this. I think this is just what the story is being set up to be, based off of just my own gameplay, based off of what I've seen other people say, what I've, kind of like what I've coagulated from, what I've kind of made an amalgamate of everything regarding Deltarune. Is I believe there are things, I believe it's setting up that the ultimate like theme of it is that there are things out of your control that you cannot change no matter what you do, but you can control the things that are not the things you can't control, is what I'm trying to say. That might be a little confusing, but that's ultimately what I mean, is that there are things you cannot control, and Deltarune is about the things you can control, which is your actions between the actions between the events you can't control, or the events after. Uh, Sorry if that sounds insane, but I do believe that Susie will not change the prophecy. I do not think she is going to do that. I think the prophecy is set in stone. There's nothing she can do about it. But I believe she can change how the prophecy gets interpreted. Like, whether that's a tragedy, maybe she can kind of reinterpret it where the guaranteed outcome is a favorable one, where it's one where everyone's happy, or she can rewrite it where it's like bittersweet or something like that. And I think that is what Deltarune is getting at. Is it's going to be about how Susie comes out of it, and how she reacts to it, and how she chooses to live her life regardless of the things she can't control, like her rough upbringing, her bad home life, the things she can't control. But she meets Chris, she chooses to become friends, with him, etc., etc. She chooses these things, she chooses these things because they make her happy, and even despite her rough home life, which at first she believes dictates a lot of things that she can't control, like her appearance, her personality, her home life, her backstory, stuff like that. She can't control that, and she believes it dictates who she is. But she eventually, obviously, ends up becoming friends with Chris out of her own choices. Even though she could have just chosen to let it define her, and choose how it controls her reactions and stuff like that. Now, in regards to one of my theories regarding how I believe the latter half of the game is going to go, and I do mean latter half, even though we're technically more than halfway through the chapters, I do believe, the way I interpret the story going, the reason why we have not received any information regarding chapter 6 and 7, why it's so vague, why nobody really knows, is I believe Chapter 5 is going to be the end. I believe that is going to be the ending of the game. I believe that is when the prophecy is going to be fulfilled. There is nothing you can do about it. The game is going to end. It's probably going to end very harshly or on a cliffhanger or something like that. But I believe that Chapter 6 and 7 are going to be like an extended epilogue, and I believe they are either going to be the same or longer length than Chapters 1 through 5. And I believe Chapter 6 and 7, which is going to be like a post-prophecy world, is going to be... It's going to be a world that is determined by the choices you made while the prophecy was happening. And you're going to get to see your actions have consequences and shape this new world that you had a hand in creating because you chose to do the Snowgrave route, you chose to do the sword route, you chose to do whatever. You chose to do these things even though you could have chosen otherwise, even outside of the events you can't control, like meeting the knight or meeting Tana or going to the Dark World. You could not control those events because those are set in stone. That's how the game is meant to be played. But you had the option to not do the Snowgrave route. You had the option to not do an aborted weird route. You had the option to not do the sword route. Like, you had these choices, but you chose to do them, and they are going to determine how the epilogue, which in my opinion is going to be either an equal or greater length game than chapters 1 through 5, where you will get to see the consequences of your actions, where you will get to see what happens when you choose evil, when you choose to react badly to things you can't control. And I believe we're going to see that when chapter 5 concludes and chapter 6 and 7 aren't out. I believe we're going to see a lot of people going to see a very negative ending, and they're going to interpret that as maybe the Snowgrave route was worth doing, or maybe the sword route was worth doing, maybe the aborted weird route was worth doing, because the ending is negative no matter what. But then I think chapters 6 and 7 are going to come out eventually, or maybe right away, we don't know. They're going to come out, and it's going, like, the epilogue is essentially going to show how your choices affected the world. And I know it wasn't intended to be an episodic thing, but like that, what I'm saying is we're going to see people who are going to initially see the ending of the game, and there might even be like a false credits screen that shows where the ending is horrific or tragic or whatever, and it's going to end the game immediately. And then we're going to pick up in chapter 6 and 7, where we're going to see the outcomes of our actions actually take fold, where like maybe if you do certain things, someone you sacrificed manages to live, or maybe they only like half die and then they come back to life, or something like that, where they only fulfill the prophecy in the strictest sense of the word. And we're going to see that versus Susie changing the prophecy, which I do not think is going to happen. I think I truly do believe the prophecy is going to happen no matter what, but your reactions and actions determine how the epilogue is going to turn out, how like the rest of the game is going to turn out, which I think would be a very interesting story. And I think that would be a very compelling theme and story to tell about, there are things you simply cannot control, but you can control how you react and act to those things. Especially in regards to Chris's themes of trauma and stuff like that, where like he is obviously choosing to separate himself from other people, his parents, because of whatever happened to him, Des and his brother or whatever. Okay, that's enough of that. I've ranted about that. I've ranted about that theory, and I think I repeated myself like 5 times. So, my final theory, which I think is probably mutually exclusive with the other one, I'm not sure. It might connect to each other. I don't know, but it's more, and I have even less evidence of this one than I did the last one. I think what is going to happen, and you're gonna have to bear with me for this one. Have you ever played Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn? In that game, basically what happens is you have a pretty like standard playthrough, and then in New Game Plus, basically everything, like the whole story changes in New Game Plus. Like literally everything changes. Like you can spare certain people, you can change the ending. Like literally everything changes. If you've also played One Shot, it's similar, where it's basically a different game on New Game Plus, or like when you play it again. And I think something similar might happen in Deltarune. I think what might happen is that when the game ends, like time or something might reset to like the past or something, or maybe it'll start back to chapter 1, and I think we're going to play a game without us. And I think we're going to play a game that's like more akin to a regular JRPG, where we have Noelle as party members and stuff. And my reason for thinking this is because in the code for a lot of these chapters, and I am not a code guy, but like these are just the things I hear people talk about in regards to the code and stuff, is basically like there are a lot of things in the code that don't do anything and seemingly have triggers that don't exist. Like in chapter 3, I believe, when you're playing the mini games, I think the third mini game or the fourth mini game or whatever, there's a variable called Toriel that changes a sprite that normally mimics your movements, and if it's on, it changes that sprite's model to a deer, which is obviously could mean death or whatever. But there's a lot of those variables in each chapter. I'm not certain of all of them because I have not done a deep dive on them. These are just like the things I've heard. But I believe and also the teas, where you can access the tea and see everyone's reactions to each other's tea, no matter what chapter it is, which is very strange because it's normally people who don't exist in those chapters, like Noelle, or you can consume tea even though it should be impossible for you to have that tea because it is outside the chapter where you get someone else's tea, and yet the variables for that tea changes even though you cannot have it in that chapter. And I believe that those missing lines of code, or like those programs that should not exist, are indicative of, oh god damn it, they are indicative of, sorry, my dog started barking, they're going crazy. I believe it's indicative of a second playthrough where we are going to see maybe certain party members or NPCs travel across the chapters that did not before. We're going to take items across chapters that did not exist before. We're going to see a whole different game. That's what I believe. And in that game, maybe we will see, like, maybe in that new game plus, we will see a different ending. Or maybe we will see, I don't know, something, like, just something different that will be, a it will that will be like how Susie changes the fate, or changes the prophecy or something, where maybe during the first playthrough you only see you only see one ending. Chapter 6 and 7 happen, like same thing there, where it's like all the same thing. And then in New Game Plus, that's where we're going to see, that's where maybe like that's the original game that Ram was talking about, where like that's the game where your choices actually matter, where like freedom exists and stuff. And I think that would be really interesting to see, where like it's maybe more akin to a regular JRPG. And we'll see, I don't know, I think that would be very interesting, where like it's very similar, but also you have a lot more people and certain crucial things are different. Anyways, I just wanted to rant about that. Yeah, before chapter 5 comes out. All right, I'll see you later. Have a good one. Bye bye.